Welcome everyone to episode 94 of First Frames First. I'm one of your hosts, Jason Green. We got a pretty fun show today. Well, I don't know. We'll see how fun it is. Maybe we're going to reach down inside of our hearts and really expose, all of the feelings. But to help us on our journey, we've invited Jeff Stanlick, who's one of the managers and registered support workers from here247.ca in the Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge area. And so we're really lucky to have him today. We're going to give you guys a Fable Forest Films update. We're going to do a little bit of a what you watching, and I'm gonna share what we're spending our money on this month for the month of March. But without further ado, let's start the show and bring in Jeff and Adrian.
Hey guys, I'm Adrian.
And I'm Jay. We run Fable Forest Films.
Right now, we're totally independent.
But what's the dream?
Making crazy awesome film and television for the biggest studios.
This podcast is our journey. Hooray! Welcome. Welcome, first of all. Adrian, you're on mute. So come on. Welcome to the show, Jeff. Thank you for being here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Adrian, can you hear me? Folks, Adrian's been having a really tough time with his internet, and he's on mute right now. I don't know if he can tell. There you go. Oh, man, one of these days, Adrian's going to learn how to computer, and we're going to be there. How you doing there, buddy?
Hi, everybody, and thank you. I'm back. I'm here. Can you hear me? Is this working? My screen's kind of frozen, but,
Yes.
Good.
Oh,
Happy birthday, Adrian. Thank you, Vincent.
It is Adrian's birthday today. So
That's right.
For your birthday, we got you a counselor. So get ready. Just lay back.
Thank you very much.
And I don't know. Jeff, do you have a couch that people lay on in your office? Is that how it works still? Or
No, there's no couch.
Okay, fine. Fair enough.
Just a comfortable chair.
Jeff, just tell us
Nice.
if it's inappropriate to joke about things. Okay, we'll do our best. Can you, Jeff, before we get into other bits and pieces of the show, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of about your organization and maybe what credentials you have? That way, we don't get sued. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And first of all, thank you both for having me on your show. This is very exciting, and I think it's amazing that you guys are talking about mental health, and this is just a great opportunity. So thank you. So my name's Jeff Stanlick. I am right now the acting director for services, our regional services, and part of that is our Here 24/7 helpline, as well as our impact team that is also that's attached to our police services and respond to crisis situations. So I've been with CMHA for my 14th year. And I'm a registered social worker, so I have a MSW, and we are a large organization. We cross Waterloo, Wellington, so CMHA-WW, and so it's a large geography, Guelph, and right up to rural Wellington, Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge. So that's a little bit about me. I'm not sure. Is there anything else that would be of interest?
No, what I wanted to do was just make sure we told people that a little bit about what you're talking about. So so we really appreciate your time. Everybody's busy these days, so thank you for being on the show and chatting with us a little bit. We're going to dive into the main discussion of the show, but first, quickly, let's just quickly. Once I find it, have an update.
Okay. I'll give you an update.
Excellent. Adrian, how are we doing? What's going on in Fable Forest world this week?
Good. So just to let everybody know, I'm in I've got 20 more VFX shots that need my attention, and I'm moving through those shots. We also have just delivered a corporate video that will be once again corrected and revised and delivered tomorrow. So that is going out the door. And Jay and I are rehearsing and practicing for pitching. We have a pitch coming up for one of our concepts. And so we're rehearsing. We're actually practicing like a script. And so we're pushing it out there. So we're really excited about that. And that's about it.
We practiced pitching last night. How well did it go, would you say?
I was actually very impressed with the way that we were able to start flowing. I think that we're just new to this whole game. So as soon as we start getting into the flow of things, I think we have the potential to get better at it. Let's put it that way.
Good. I like that that's what you had to say. Would you like me to show people the video of our first pitch attempt?
No, that should probably... Can you burn video? Can you burn it? 100%.
I'm going to set the computer on fire after this show.
That's good. Throw that away.
Yes. So that's what we've been working on. So it's been a good time for those of you who are familiar with the Postman concept. We like to bring it up again and pitch it. We pitched it to the Impact program maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago, and we're getting the opportunity to pitch it again this weekend. So we're pretty excited about bringing that up. Adrian, do you want to?
Well, the next part of our segment is now we're going to start chatting to Jeff. We're going to dive into the main bit of our segment. And the reason that we got interested in this is because we both kind of had little wobbles, if I could call it that. We just both looked at each other and realized that we were each having a go. We were going through something. And as it relates to a creative field, we thought maybe this was something we should talk about a little bit. And so thank you, Jeff, once again for being on the show. And let's get into the main segment.
Oh, whiny baby.
Yes.
Listen, although it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, this is serious.
What, is that what you call folks that call into the helpline for support? I assume not.
No, that's not what we call
okay,
them.
good. That's what we're calling ourselves, okay? But Adrian, why don't you kick us off with just kind of where we're at and what we want to talk to Jeff about today.
So we're just, from our perspective, we're just looking at people that were engaging in a creative endeavor. They were trying to do something significant creatively. And as they were surging towards this goal that they had set, I mean, often you're getting caught and it becomes very difficult and people get stuck and they can often really get down on themselves. And this was the trap that we were finding ourselves. We want to do this thing. It's maybe not going the way that we would like, and your legs and your arms just get heavy. You really need to go for walks around to kind of breathe and calm down and tell yourself that everything's going to be okay, even when you feel like it's not going to be okay. So
what I'd like to ask is, people throw the word depression around a lot, and so we might say like we're in a depressed state or we're in a bad place or whatever. But can you give us a little bit of, let's say, the real terminology of depression? Is there a spectrum, and kind of how do different people fit on it?
Yeah, so absolutely. Depression is very common, and it exists on a continuum, right? And so people might experience, and I think at some level everyone has experienced a form of a situational depression, and so on that continuum there you have the situational depression, and then on the other side is really the clinical depression piece, and it could vary in terms of sadness or hopelessness, despair, and with clinical depression, it's more than a passing unhappiness or a low mood, and it can seriously affect somebody's daily life and how they function day to day. So it's common, but it can also be a major depression or clinical depression, a serious mood disorder that's, like I say, that's beyond unhappiness, and people will often feel sad, empty, irritable for long periods. It can cause changes in the body, so sleep problems or appetite problems and changes in mind as well. So be troubles concentrating, and to determine kind of where on that continuum, it really depends on the impact it has on somebody's daily life.
So how would you say, I suppose let's bring it back to kind of the discussion that we had last week, and thanks very much for watching the episode. So kind of we talked about a couple of different examples with myself and then also with Adrian. Can we talk about how a person can recognize that they're in a bad mental state when they're in it? Like what's the best way to that way you try not to go too far down the road? Like are there some, I don't want to say tips and tricks, but are there methods that you can use to kind of remind yourself where you're at?
So absolutely. And I think it's important to recognize those signs, both for ourselves and for people that we know, right? Like our family and our friends. I also, again, I did have that opportunity to watch your show last week, and thank you both. I appreciate you're both vulnerable with your own experiences. And I think that it's opportunities like this that help others, right? And talking about it, and specifically as men typically don't talk about these things as much as women, perhaps. And so when we're looking at some of the things to look for, it could be, and again, being on a spectrum or on a continuum, it's the sadness throughout the day, or losing interest in things that we would typically enjoy, our favorite activities, right? Feeling worthless, excessive or inappropriate guilt, thoughts of death or suicide, troubles making decisions or difficulty with concentrating, feelings of irritability. Now, I mean, at times I think we've all felt irritable or have had troubles making decisions, and have felt guilty or have lacked energy or sleep.
Or in Adrian's case, has felt worthless.
Or has had internet problems as well, right?
Come on. It's no fun making a joke when the guy doesn't hear it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
That's right. There you go. So, yeah, fatigue, lack of energy. It could be people are sleeping too much or they're not sleeping enough. Change of appetite. There's an interesting video on CAMH on their website around depression, and they have some excellent resources there. And in preparing for tonight's conversation, I reviewed some of those pieces, and I watched a video that interviewed people who are struggling with depression, and when they were asked about what it all started with, they mentioned that it started with a relationship breakup or a loss of a loved one, and loss is something that can certainly have a profound impact on people. Relationship breakup could also be a personal relationship, or it could be that a family relationship that's ended, whether it's parents or a connection of a sibling, whatever that looks like, and
right.
School struggles, traumatic experiences it was another one that people talked about as being kind of where it all started for them.
I think a couple of things that you're getting at, which is just the breadth of the problem, right? Because it can start anywhere, almost like a lot of different events, and it can take the form of really any end of the spectrum, like you said, not sleeping or sleeping too much, not eating or eating too much. So basically, if you're starting to feel not normal on any one side or the other, things to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, and the other part of the video I think that's important to make mention of is that people, they got to a realization that they'd say, I'm not alone, and that was comforting and reassuring to them to know that that others are struggling, right? And someone else said, listen, like I've got my dogs who need me and they're happy to see me. And that keeps me going. And I've got a great network of friends, family, knowing that people are out there that can help. And one person was, I mean, their comment was quite significant. They said, listen, like I'm still standing. And despite everything I've been going through and what I've gone through, I'm still standing. And that gets me through and brings me forward.
Yeah, for sure. How do you diagnose somebody with depression, and how do you treat them normally? Or is there a normal? Is it a case-by-case basis? And can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. And it is very much a case-by-case. The only ones who really can give a diagnosis is a physician, especially a psychiatrist can give a more accurate assessment and diagnosis. And it really looks at the persistence of those signs that we kind of talked about, right? How much it's impacting somebody's ability to function every day. And it, you know, is it something that is reoccurring week to week? There's you know, we look at family history as an assessment of somebody's risk factor for depression, their life circumstances. So it really is case by case. And one thing I think that is really important to mention is that depression is both, it's common and it's treatable. And it's not a sign of weakness to reach out and to have that conversation with somebody. And certainly, you know, that could be a doctor to begin that conversation with.
It definitely, go ahead, Adrian. Welcome back.
Sorry, just thank you very much. Just to ask a quick question, does it affect people of different ages differently?
So,
or sexes, or like, is there some?
Is it more prevalent in different demographics of society?
Yeah, I mean, depression usually is diagnosed and recognized typically at a young age, well, as a teenager, late teens and into the 20s and 30s is usually when it manifests, but it can be at any time, right? So it's not isolated to a particular age. It is more commonly diagnosed in women. Though it doesn't, like I say, it doesn't discriminate. And family history, like I say, if there's a parent or grandparent or somebody in the family who's had a history of depression or mental health concern diagnosis, then that could really add to somebody's situation, genetics and life circumstances. So you look at marginalized communities as well. So people who are struggling, whether it's in poverty or if they're not working, if their situation is such that they're not functioning every day and they can't work, or they begin to isolate, right? Somebody might begin to isolate. And so I don't know that I actually answered that question fully, but maybe that's a little bit of a start there.
What about, and I don't know if you can say, you know, we see this or we see that, but you kind of talked a little bit about clinical depression versus situational depression. And because of the nature of our show, you know, what do you guys see in, or do you guys see something prevalent in the artist community or people that are trying to do something in the creative space? Like,
right.
No.
Well, no, I mean, it's depression it's unique, right? And it's unique to many groups. When we look at signs and signs to look for, it's you know, it can come out as physical signs, behavioral signs, emotional, perceptual, cognitive. And I mean, I think that people who are, and you asked around people who are in your business, right? And maybe if you can give a sense of what some of the unique pieces or aspects are to that group, that might help me answer that question a bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose I'm thinking of entrepreneurs or artists or people that are trying to, let's say, step away from the normal 9 to 5. Not to say that the 9 to 5 doesn't present all of its own issues and situational problems as well. But the people that are trying to create, and do you find that those people tend to be I don't know, more in touch with their emotional side, or wear their hearts on their sleeves a little bit more, or more easily bruised, so to speak?
Yeah, you know what, the artistic side and things like that, I mean, that's actually a very helpful outlet for folks that might be struggling with depression or some form of a mental health concern. And people find comfort and relief in whether it's in their creativity, if it's music or any form of kind of art or interest in hobbies. I mean, I think it's about staying true to who you are, right? Not giving up on what it is that gives you joy. And I mean, I think it's important for that group to stay connected with like-minded individuals, right? And sharing those experiences. So again, it's not, depression doesn't target a particular group, right? It doesn't discriminate. Many people may think that it is a certain group. Some people have a higher risk of struggling with their mental health, and it could be from those marginalized groups, whether they've experienced trauma, or Indigenous communities, or people who are struggling in poverty. So it doesn't discriminate, and we see people who are famous and in the news who struggle as well. So it does touch everybody at some level.
Dave, one of our watchers, Dave just asked, you had mentioned that there tends to be more diagnosis for women than men. He's wondering if that's because men don't share as much.
Yeah, it could be. I think that there's a few reasons for that. This is a great question. And I mean, when we look at why women may be diagnosed more with depression, there are some other factors involved that are perhaps more unique to women. And I did actually make a list of them because I knew that I wouldn't remember them. So let me just pull that list up here. So a small number of women who have depression, it could be related to premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which is related to a small group of women that's specific to women. Pregnancy and postpartum depression, of course, with women is a common experience. Menopause, trauma, women are far more likely to experience sexual abuse as at some point in their life, and that traumatic experience could lead to a form of depression. Women are also more likely to live in poverty when compared to men. So there are many reasons, and I would agree. I think that many men who do struggle with depression don't necessarily reach out, and I think that's also a fair assumption and contributor to it.
But the women do have a lot of additional items, Dave. So come on,
yes,
be nice to your wife. Hi, Carrie.
So hopefully you guys can hear me, but I'll just throw a question in there. Can you talk about some of the can you talk about some of the treatments that people can undergo when they become diagnosed with a particular kind of depression?
And let me add a piece to that too. If we're talking about more of the situational depression and not you're not going on to like medication or whatever, what are some of the treatments for situational depression as well?
Yeah, so why don't I start with a bit of an analogy that I think many can relate with. And I mean, if you're like most people, you probably have a car, and I think that we've all had one car or another that was a bit of a makeshift car that we all MacGyvered to some degree. And for me, it was a 1989 Mazda B2200 truck. And, you'd have a coat hanger holding together the exhaust or whatever. But anyway, if we think about a car and we fill it up with gas, we change the oil, make sure that the brakes are good, we put on some winter tires, maybe even take it through the car wash, and all the things that we do to keep it on the road, right, to prevent a breakdown. And it's important to take care of your car to get the most out of it, right? So as humans, we work in the same way. So in order to get the most out of ourselves, it's important for us to engage in the ongoing self-care. And that could include things like watching your favorite shows, relaxing, setting goals, enjoying hobbies.
I assume people's favorite show is The Art of Eight Limbs, now streaming on Bell 5 TV1.
Absolutely. And it could be that that could be a great way to cope and prevent yourself from spiraling downwards, right? And actually, on your previous show,
I'm putting that on the poster, Jeff.
Yeah. On your previous show, I heard you talk about all of the series that you're watching, particularly Jason J. I heard you talk about that, which is pretty cool. And I think that so when you ask about ways and treatment, that's a bit of the preventative piece, right? Like taking care of ourselves, making sure that we're staying healthy, that we're eating well, we're sleeping well, getting physical activity. And Adrian, I know you talked about going for that walk, right? And that walk sounded like it was a very kind of important piece to your processing of those of that experience for you, right? And so those are, I mean, there's always counseling and medication on the clinical end, right? And I think it's important for people to know that that's part of it, and that's part of the continuum. But there's also those other pieces, right? And another thing, yeah. Go ahead.
I would love to hear you elaborate just a little bit on. You said goal setting was one of the ways that people can kind of climb out of the feelings that they're having. Can you talk a little bit to that? Because I will say that straight out of that walk came myself sitting down and establishing a new set of goals for myself, and it was all part of the process. And could you just elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that goal setting is important, and to feel that sense of accomplishment is huge, right? And I think that when we're feeling down and we're feeling overwhelmed, it's easy to, and I know you talked about procrastinate, right? It's easy to procrastinate and just kind of shut down, sit in front of the TV and feel as though you're not motivated. Sometimes goal setting can be, it could be small goals, and they need to be realistic and they need to be achievable, because you also don't want to set yourself up for failure. But
one of my goals for today was to create the happy birthday post for Adrian. Completed. So I'm feeling pretty good today. Thank you.
Happy birthday, Adrian. I hope that the day's been good for you.
Yes, it has. Do you know what? I got to say though, I was excited for my birthday. up until 11:59, and then the day happened, and all of a sudden I was like, why am I all slouchy today? I should be excited and happy, but I just kind of dragged myself around the day. It was a good day, but the birthdays go from being the best day of the year. As you get older, it slowly moves to being the worst day of the year for you. So I don't know what's happening. I'm in the middle there.
That's right. That's right. You know, today's another significant day, and it's that anniversary, right, of of COVID and the pandemic. We've also recognized and acknowledged that in our fields, because it's this past year has weighed heavy on people. So
that's right. Have you? I mean, obviously, I assume that you guys have seen an uptake in depression with COVID. What kinds of things are you guys dealing with at the moment with the pandemic?
Yeah, so we have seen an increase for sure in people who are calling, which, you know, I also think is a good thing. People are reaching out for help, and they're reaching out for support. It's the isolation piece has really been a hard thing for folks, and especially seniors too, right? Like every age group have their unique challenges throughout all of this, and that isolation is quite significant. I think we've seen a increase in complexity, right, of people's presentation. So where somebody may have presented. So if I were to kind of share an example of somebody, right, who might be struggling, and so they may be at home one night and experiencing a lot of stress, and they may have just lost their job. They might have some relationship difficulties and financial strain. At times, people find that their mind is at its worst in the nighttime, and that's when they find they can't sleep. They might turn to a glass of wine or a beer, and it might accumulate to more. And that's when we hear from people as well, and fortunately we are hearing from folks that might be feeling isolated and struggling, and there are resources and there are ways to access support. Sometimes it's about having somebody to talk to in that moment, and to offload some of that stress, because we don't always want to do that with the people that we're closest to either. So
yeah, that's right. Sometimes you don't. It's easier to share that kind of thing with someone who's a stranger rather than the person who's sitting right next to you. Yeah,
it can be.
I'm going to do a little bit of a shout out, just because, I mean, we're live, we're on video, but just in case there are some people that are listening to the show. So I'll just mention that Jeff's provided a link to his website. So if you do feel like you need to connect to an addiction or mental health crisis support worker, the link for the website is here247.ca. So HERE247.ca. And Jeff, you mentioned as well there was a phone number that people could call. Do you happen to know it off the top of your?
No, absolutely. So the telephone, I always double check it though, right? Because I don't want to be giving out the wrong number. So I always pull it up when I convey what it is. So it's 1-844-437-3247. 1-844-HERE247.
Okay, that's great. And we will put the links and the number in the show notes as well, for people that are listening or checking it out later. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jeff. You must have some really tough days in the office. You must also have some really rewarding days in the office. I mean, thank you very much for being there, for taking these calls, because it's really important. I mean, I just imagine the picture you were painting of that individual, when they're calling you, they need to talk to someone, So I don't know. Thank you very much for being there, for being on the other side of the line. I mean, it's really important.
We have a great complement of staff, right, that are on those ready to take those calls, and they're coming to work every day supporting folks, and it's important, and I think that we all we need to support each other, right? And sometimes, like we mentioned, it's nice to be able to call somebody who's maybe not as close to us as we'd like to share that information with.
All right. So before we jump out of this, before we jump out of the main segment, I would love to just have you recap some techniques that people should try if they are feeling down. If you're feeling down in the dumps, obviously you've got the number, you have the website, you can call. But what are some other things people can try just on their own if they find themselves wandering down, getting heavier with depression?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, it's a continuum, right? But ask for help. There's no shame in asking for help, and it's common and it's treatable, right? And there are supports available for folks. It's some things that we can do is stay physically active. Physical activity helps to relieve tension and clear the mind, ease stress, and increase energy. Eating well and sleeping well, maintaining a routine, spending time outdoors has a huge benefit. Sunshine and fresh air can be calming, right? Mm-hmm. And then one more piece I would mention is just the limiting that alcohol and substance use. When we're feeling down, and while it might help in the moment, it can certainly become more of a problem later on. So so those are just some ways of kind of, I think you mentioned last week that loop. I liked how you described it. A negative loop, I think, is what you had mentioned.
Yeah, negative thought loop. Yeah,
or a negative thought loop. So
yeah. Well, thanks for the tips on, and you know what? The great thing is this shouldn't be a surprise to most people, right? Stay fit, eat well, try to get outside and get some fresh air, and when you're in the thick of it, just take a break, right? Do something that you really enjoy, take a breather and get some fresh air, and be careful with the substances.
One more thing I would add, and you talked about, I don't know if you have time, but I just wanted to add one more thing, is that negative self-talk. Sometimes we are our worst enemies, right? And we begin to get into this pattern of negative talk, and we're the hardest on ourselves, right? And that's an important piece to recognize and sometimes give it a little bit of attention, but then be done with it, right? And that can be a way to really stop that negative thought loop.
Yeah, because it really can be aggressive. You can get really mean with yourself inside your head, and absolutely, you gotta, for my one, that walk that I went on, you gotta walk through the emotion until you start calming down and you can start thinking rationally again. Because while you're in that enraged or like that emotional state, just the things that you're saying to yourself can be really atrocious. So
they can be.
Yeah. Make sure that it's your friends that are your worst enemy, not you.
And not yourself.
Let your friends put you down the way it's meant to be.
Yeah.
Because they'll be easier on you than you will on yourself.
That's right. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks so much, Jeff. We're going to include you in the rest of our show here. So I think it's time to get a little bit lighter and talk about what we're watching this week. All right, let me start this week. I just wanted to say, last night, Lex and I, we've been watching Westerns. We've been watching cowboy movies because my youngest son and I are starting to work on, I know I shouldn't be starting another project, but we're just kind of kicking the tires and working away at it while we can, but we're writing a Western. And so we've been watching lots of old Westerns to kind of make sure that we just fill our Western chock-a-block full of the subtle nuances of, like all
the tropes of the genre.
That's right, exactly. So we watched this movie last night called Chato's Land, and Chato was an engine. Man, I tell you, those movies back in the day were a little racisty. But it was not Charlton Heston, Charles Bronson.
John Wayne?
And no, Charles Bronson and Jack Palance. If you remember Jack Palance, who was in most of our generation knows him from City Slickers. He was like, "There's the one thing, Billy Crystal." But anyways, so we watched this old Western where there was this asshole. He got shot in a bar, and then everybody formed a posse to try to go get the guy that killed their asshole buddy, and he just rode them out through the wilderness and like picked them off one at a time, while he was like doing his whole, living off the land thing. It was pretty great. So we enjoyed an super old timey Western. I'll tell you, the way that film used to look, it's magical. Nobody makes movies like that anymore. It's so blurry, not
Rich.
crisp at all.
Yeah.
There's no 4K. It's just like dusty and wonderful. How about you, Jeff? Are you a TV guy? Are you a movie guy?
Well, it's funny you ask. I have a 5-year-old and I have a 3-year-old. So my TV looks very different than your TV. So is that you, Adrian?
Exactly like Adrian's, yeah.
Yeah, that's Jeff, that is exactly the same. Why don't you tell me what you're watching and we'll compare notes?
Oh,
are you watching American Gods like Adrian is with his kids?
Yeah, just lots of kids programming, I'm telling you. And sometimes that's kind of nice too.
Can I give you a suggestion for a very lovely, excellent show? I'm going to give you 2 suggestions. One of them is a show on Disney Plus called Bluey. Now, Bluey is an Australian show, and they actually won Emmys, and it's just beautiful. It not only teaches kids, and it's just a cartoon. It's kind of in the same vein as Peppa Pig, but the animation's a lot better. And it just is, it teaches kids how to play, and it teaches adults how to be good parents. It's excellent.
Bluey?
Yeah. And then I would say Bluey. And then I would say Avatar, The Last Airbender's on Netflix. And I'll tell you, it's a show that all of us can enjoy. The 5-year-old, the 3-year-old, me, and then my wife sits there. She doesn't enjoy it, but she sits there because she has to. And we're watching Avatar, The Last Airbender.
Perfect.
The cartoon.
Yes. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jeff,
but what's your favorite?
I would also just like to say one last. Yeah.
Adrian. Jeff, what's your favorite kids cartoon? What kids cartoon do you enjoy the most?
Oh boy. Well, my daughter's into the Peppa Pig. I'm not a huge fan myself, must say. My son has discovered Number Blocks, and it's on Netflix. And I'm telling you, at 5 years old, he's now doing multiplication, division. He is just excelling with math, and so is my daughter. Now they're on to Alpha Blocks. Number Blocks is good. We've mastered that. Alpha Blocks is next.
Nice. I'm writing these down because I need to work on my multiplications also. Adrian, how about you?
So I just recently finished the book by Kevin Smith, and it's a book called Silent Bob Speaks. And I'd just like to say, so Kevin Smith, he made Clerks, he made Dogma, he made Chasing Amy, and a host of other films. He's known as a sort of an indie filmmaker, although he's only made one indie film. And reading his book, I'm always looking for new information. I'm always looking to learn something. I did not learn anything from this, but it was thoroughly entertaining. And I'm sure that's what he was going for. It has zero cool, like new information about what the film industry is really. It's just him having fun behind the keys, being Kevin Smith, which is pretty entertaining. I really did enjoy it. That's what I'm reading. Yeah. All right. Okay, so the next, let me say the next section of the show. This is where once a month we give $25 to a needy cause or some kind of art organization or something along those lines. This month was Jason's turn to pick the organization. So Jason is making it rain.
We're making it rain.
That was
Very good.
pretty I'm
Jason,
still-
who
I'm-
did
I'm
you
still
donate
waiting.
$5
So
to?
first of all, it's $25, and this is a very worthy cause. That number one, very artsy fartsy, and number two, really need the bucks this year. So I'm gonna put it up online here. Here we go. There we go. So this week or this month, we donated to the Stratford Festival. So it was great. It was really good timing. Last week, when I forgot to give some of our money away to a needy cause, I actually got a phone call from the Stratford Festival because my wife and I, every year for the last 5, have taken the boys to see a Shakespeare play during the Stratford Festival. So they called us up and they were like, hey, we're really hurting this year, right? Like they run their whole festival off of donations and people's tickets. They don't get a lot of, they get grants from the public and whatnot. They don't rely on the government too much. So they let us know that they have their Raising the Tent donation kind of drive where they're going to try to raise a bunch of money to have the Stratford Festival in a new fashion under tents during the summer this year. So hopefully they had to cancel their entire year last year. So hopefully they're going to be able to bring back something in a limited capacity. So I didn't sign up for buy tickets this year. I doubt that we will. I don't know, but that's where we tossed our money this year. So if you guys love the Stratford Festival, if you've been, think about donating a couple bucks to them. If you haven't been to the Stratford Festival, they've got a bunch of stuff that you can rent online. Like you can watch Stratford at home. I don't know if you guys have done any like concerts or plays online during the pandemic, but they have a bunch. My wife actually watched the Josh Groban concert, the Valentine's Day concert. Online. We bought it. We put the couch down here, had it on the big screen with the music, and she loved it. So you gotta think of new things to do when you're stuck at home. So that's where our money went this month rather. So pretty. It was good.
All right,
time.
and now for the final. Good. Now for the final segment, we would like to know, Jeff, your desert island movies. If you were stuck on a desert island and you could only take 3 movies or 3 TV shows with you, what would they be? This segment is Desert Island Movies.
Desert Island movies. Holy cow. I haven't even thought about movies, to be honest, in a very long time. I loved watching the
You're
Goonies.
on the wrong show, Jeff. The Goonies?
The Goonies, that was a favorite. Gosh, what else? I don't know. Maybe you guys can help me out with one you would choose.
Yep. Desert Island movies?
Well, tell us this. Do you remember the last movie that you went to go see in the cinema?
I think it was Frozen. Hey, I'm just being honest.
That is a good one. No, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't Frozen 2. She has to like spritz some ice to get out of the water, right? Get off the island. So, I mean, maybe that's an appropriate desert island movie for you. What was the first movie
Jeff,
that you remember seeing in the theater? When you were youngin', did you ever go to the theater?
Yes. I remember watching Hook when I was younger.
Oh my God. I love
Peter Pan. That was a good one.
So good.
Yeah.
So excellent.
Robin Williams was the best.
So now, the question, Jeff, that I have for you about Frozen 2 is how many times did you go and see Frozen 2 in the theater?
Just one.
I went 4 times.
I went no times. Adrian, how many times have you seen Frozen 2? I've seen it no times. I haven't seen Frozen 2 yet.
Oh boy.
During the pandemic, during the pandemic, Henley would I'd let her watch like a third of the movie every day, and she would just always pick Frozen 1. And then she would watch a third of the movie, and the next day, the next bit, the next day, the next bit. And so we've been moving through Frozen 1 continuously for like my whole life. That's basically what it feels like.
Well, I only saw it once in the theater, but it's been on in our living room many, many times. Let me tell you.
Someday I'll watch Moana and Frozen too. I don't know. Yeah. But for now, I have no clue. I know The Rock's in it. Moana, I mean, not Frozen 2.
Moana's
The Rock in
excellent.
Frozen 2?
Yeah. No, he's not. But let me tell you something. Moana's excellent. Excellent movie.
Tina, what are you doing up? Seriously, I don't know why Tina is still awake. But thank you for being with us. Tina lives in Scotland, so it's past everyone's bedtime. I'm just gonna say. Well, thank you very much again, Jeff, for being on the show. That's pretty much it for this week. Adrian, any final thoughts?
No, I'd just like to say thank you very much, Jeff, for being on the show. It means a lot to be able to talk about this kind of thing, and thank you so much.
Listen, I appreciate it, and thank you for having the conversation. Like I say, this is awesome. I think that I hope it'll reach many people. We all need each other, right?
I mean, us too, because we need YouTube subscribers.
There you go.
It's very selfish. It's very selfish, but that's why we're hoping. I mean, sure, we're hoping that people get help with their mental health issues, but also, Adrian's like, what an idiot. Well, that's it for this week's
We were
show.
doing so well, Jeff.
That's how I ruin everything.
You're an animal, Jason.
We'll be back next week. We'll talk about more movie stuff and what's going on in the film world. But until next time, dream big.
Work hard.
We got to fix Adrian's internet. See you, everybody.
Work hard, work hard, work hard.
Really hope you enjoyed the show.
Wherever you watched or listened, please leave us a comment or a review. We really want to hear from you.
Share the show with a friend. You know they'll love us.
Head over to our website, thefableforest.com. There's all kinds of great stuff.
Poke around. Check it out.
See you all again in a couple weeks.